Yoda and his hut on Dagobah are some of the most memorable and cool things in all of Star Wars, and with the recent release of one of the probably best LEGO sets of all time in my opinion, I thought it'd be a good time to take a look at all of the iterations of Yoda's hut that we've seen in LEGO throughout the years, maybe shine some light on some of the less popular models that people aren't too aware of, and just do a general comparison between these three to see which have the best to offer in different categories. So before we get started, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, help build us from the ground up, and stay tuned because there will be more comparisons like this in the near future. So yeah, keep an eye out for those. Starting off with a timeline and overview of all of these, the first one we've ever had was actually set 4502 X-Wing fighter that included the Yoda's hut as kind of like a background side build, so it wasn't even really released as a Yoda's hut. But that was back in 2004, the very first one ever, so you can see the figures, or one figure at least, still has yellow colored flesh there. This one had 563 pieces, and again, remember that included the X-Wing as well, so the hut itself, I actually don't know how many pieces are in that. And it originally retailed for $50 US, and of course you've got your 3 minifigs, which you'll pretty much see consistently throughout all of the sets. The next Yoda's hut we saw was 11 years later, and it was just in this mini build from Comic-Con. I think the set number was like Comic-Con number 44 or something, not even like a full set number, but it's just this mini build, which is pretty comparable to the new set we have actually, because it's just like this diorama of the hut, the swamp, the X-Wing and everything. And just for the sake of mentioning them, it does have these minifigure kind of imitation things of Yoda and Luke in his pilot suit here, and it does have this stud that represents R2-D2's head, so yeah, technically you do have your same 3 minifigures there. And this one included 177 pieces, and it actually also did include an R2-D2 minifigure, just the regular one they had for the time. I actually parted this set out on Bricklink, so I didn't even bother to grab the figure because I think it's the same as the one in a bunch of other sets. Like, he doesn't have the mud print on the new one, so I just didn't even bother to include him. The next one we had was 1 year later. They did another mini Yoda's hut in one of those foil packs that came with the Star Wars comic books or whatever, or magazines in Europe exclusively, so it was never widely released in America. And yeah, there's nothing too exciting here. It's like 29 pieces, I think. Nothing too crazy there, no minifigures, not even the representations of them, just this little measly build. The next one we had was another Playscale Yoda's hut, and this one actually released on its own for $30 US, was set 75208, just Yoda's hut, as those same 3 minifigures as before, with Yoda, Luke, and R2-D2, but this time an exclusive R2-D2. I believe all these figures are exclusive, except maybe the Yoda came in the new one, but that Luke is different in the new one, so he's exclusive. R2 with the mud printing, exclusive to that, even though he's very similar to the new one. And I believe Yoda is the same. We'll take a look at the minifigures here in a second. And the final one we have to add to the picture is the brand new 75330 Dagobah Jedi Training. So kind of a funky name, or at least some people think that. I don't really think it's fine. It's Dagobah Jedi Training. That's what it is. But this one includes a nice even 1,000 pieces. That is more satisfying than it should be, honestly. And again, your same 3 minifigures there with your Yoda, Luke, and R2-D2. And you've got a nice little chunk of an X-Wing. It's not the same wing as like the most recent X-Wing. It is definitely not the same at all. The new cannon, I know it kind of looks weird with the camera angle here, but the cannons are way longer on the actual set version. And just with the piece they're using for the wing, it's like a longer angled pieces here, so you couldn't exactly use the same piece for the model, or it would just be way out of scale and weird. So I understand it would have been nice to see the consistency, but I understand why they didn't do it ultimately, just because it didn't work out size-wise. But yeah, those are your 5 Yoda's huts. So obviously, for the comparison's sake, it's mostly just going to be the 3 actual minifigure scale ones, or almost minifigure scale. And these 2 are kind of just here for reference, just to be here and just to be cool and have them all, I guess. So let's jump in and take a look at each of these individually now. Starting off just with the minifigures for the 3 sets, you see it is kind of cool how it's consistent throughout all of them, the exact same 3 figures, but I mean, I don't really know who else they'd put in. It would have been really cool to see like a Force Ghost Obi-Wan, especially in the new set, but other than that, it's pretty predictable. Like, there's nothing really they could have done. So the first one, it's that classic original Yoda design, which is probably my favorite personal Yoda of all time. But if you're just looking at like quality and accuracy and detail and stuff, the new ones probably are more accurate than he is. But it's still just an iconic ketamine Honda Civic driving Yoda that everyone knows and loves. So gotta give respect where respect is due, of course. The next one is that Dagobah Luke, who is actually a pretty expensive figure these days. I think just on his own he's like $40 or something like that. But again, that yellow skin tone, so if you don't really like that, it's obviously not so accurate, but it's obviously classic and ties you to that time frame and really throws you back with the nostalgia and stuff, so there's a lot to be said for that too. It's also worth mentioning he has the wrong lightsaber. Like, they literally included him with this green lightsaber in the set, and he still had his blue one at the time, because that was pre-hand severing. So it's kind of just interesting. That was such a simple little blunder that they made back in the day, but nothing too big deal, I guess. And the third one is this R2-D2, which is, I believe, the same as the very first design still, and nothing too crazy there, not one of the more accurate ones. Nothing I'm super sentimentally attached to, because, like, I'll just straight up say that the new R2-D2s are probably better than this one, whereas for even the Luke, I think I like the old Luke probably more than I like the new ones, just because of the memories and stuff, but the R2, I think he's probably the worst R2-D2 that's ever been released. Now the figures for the 2018 Yoda's Hut, the same three figures, of course. You've got a Yoda, who's probably a little bit more accurate. I believe he is completely identical to the new one. Like, the listing is too new on Bricklink, there's not even, like, details and stuff on there, but from all the close looks that I've taken, got shadows here, I need another light. I only have one right now on the side. But all the details I can see look exactly the same. Like, the head or hair printing is all the same, the back printing is the same. All I can say is maybe some of the lines and wrinkles are a little bit darker on the new one, but I'm pretty sure these are the exact same figure that they've used for the 2018 and 2022 Yoda. So yeah, solid figure there. I guess the head is more accurate than the original one, but I still think it looks a tad funky. I still think the first one was perfect. The next one is the Luke minifigure. Just to compare him to the new one right away, I suppose. They are different figures, very, very similar, but definitely different. There's more accuracy and detail in the torso print on the new one, just with the lines and stuff. The hip printing and belt buckle are different on the new one, which is on the right. You can see the pockets are quite a bit different. I believe the face printing is the same. Like, the eyes kind of look a little bit different on the new one and old one, but they are very similar. I'm pretty sure it's the same thing. And taking a look at the back face print, I'm, again, pretty sure those are identical as well. It's that more using the Force or meditating type of face style. So it's pretty much the same headpiece, but the torso and legs are specific and unique to the other sets. Also notice in the 2018 one, he has this little back apparatus thing wrapped around his neck, so you can actually have Yoda riding on his back. So it's kind of a shame they don't have anything to replicate that in the new set, especially being like the 18+ thing. I understand, like, it is play scale, but it is not really a play set exactly. So it's kind of understandable that they don't have as many play features or anything, which is what I would consider that to be. Like, it doesn't look super great on display having Yoda on his back, so it's just kind of weird. So it's fine that it doesn't include that. The last one up here is the new R2-D2 with the custom, unique mud splattering and stuff on it, so it's kind of weird for a specific figure. But you've got your mud splattered R2-D2. So the torso prints, from all I could tell, like, looking up at the patterns and matching them up, they're exactly the same, except maybe the new one's a little bit darker of a print. The back print, however, is noticeably absent on the 2018 version, and for the first time, we actually have back printing in the new one. So that is great to finally see. I'm kind of shocked. Like, I never thought of the fact that there was never back printing on R2-D2. I always assumed, like, somewhere along the line they must have had it, but since someone mentioned it, it's like, oh wow, that actually is the first time we've ever seen that. So that is kind of crazy. And then the head prints, I looked at them. Some of the markings are completely identical and some of them are not. So it is definitely a brand new head print. You probably cannot even tell. But if you look really close, like, this is the same side on the head and there is noticeably different mud splattering on the side. So it is a unique head for the two of these. They each have their own thing and they're only in the one set, each of them. So yeah, two exclusive R2-D2s here. In comparison to the first R2-D2, I think it's pretty clear that the new ones are more accurate and better. And with the back print included on the newest one, I think it's hands down the best of the R2-D2s. Of the Luke Skywalkers, the first one obviously has its flaws and issues, but it definitely has a nostalgic vibe to it. So it's okay to say he's the best or your favorite just because he's so different. Whereas these two are a lot more comparable, and it's hard to say, like, the printing is really good on the 2018 one. Like, it is definitely different and a little more detailed than the new one, but maybe not enough to compensate for the fact that this one also has the back stand and a full lightsaber. The only lightsaber in this new set is actually Yoda's lightsaber tucked away in there somewhere, and it's just the hilt, not the blade, which I'll take a look at in a bit. So yeah, this Luke does not even have a lightsaber, so I guess technically the 2018 one is probably the best of the Luke figures. So lastly, that just leaves the Yoda figures, with the latest two of these being, for all intents and purposes, identical. I'm pretty sure they completely are. It's really just a matter of whether you like the nostalgic vibe or the new vibe, so that one's completely up to you, which one is the best Yoda figure. Let me know down in the comments which ones you prefer. Taking a look now at the three builds, you'll see each of these has a very different set of things to offer, and it's almost not worth comparing just because they're so different. Like this one is just like a side build, and the actual set is your X-Wing, so that makes up for a big amount of your play features as having an actual ship included. This is probably your most well-balanced and play feature inclusive set. And then this one, by far looks the nicest, but it doesn't have that much by way of play features, but it clearly includes much more of the scenery and stuff, and it looks way better for display. So we're still going to kind of open these up and take a look at them and see. So the first Yoda's hut here honestly might look the most accurate from the outside, just because if you look at actual pictures of it on the outside, it kind of is like more dark and earthy looking, whereas pictures of the interior, it looks a lot more of that tan color that is used to represent it in the new two LEGO sets. So if we're being technical, the first one here is probably the most accurate looking from the exterior. It has this very nice like root printed piece on the top, very dusty because this is an old set. But yeah, it definitely has too many windows. There were not 4 windows in Yoda's hut. The entrance looks very nice, and it's about the right size. Like Yoda fits in there, and Luke has to duck just a little bit to make it inside. And turning it around in the back, like it kind of closes up and makes a very well-rounded set. Like it almost looks like it's closed off, whereas the other ones, it looks very wide open and empty from behind. But this one can like open up nice and easily. This flap opens up on the top, and these panels here on the sides open. If I can do this one-handed. And it spreads out, and you've got a lot of nice playroom in here. So you can really stretch it out. It's probably the best for actually getting inside. Like, it's the most accessible. You've got Yoda's little cot here, or his bed. And underneath that, you can pull it up, and you can see that he has his lightsaber tucked away underneath down there. I really need another light. This is so shadowy. I am so sorry. He's also got this little bucket here, which I believe he does come with a cane. Yeah, he does have a cane, and I think you can kind of just throw that in the bucket there for storage. I've got this table with a little cup and a jar or whatever, little stove top with a pot there, and again, way too many windows. It was not that wide open. So yeah, not too much going on. Not play features, little detail things, but not really play features inside. It is really cool that they have this like weird, I want to say it's like sand orange or something for the floor color. They've just got your regular like browns and greens and stuff. So I just think the color scheme is probably the best on this one. I don't know. I just really like it a lot. A nice shrubbery and stuff and plants on the outside. It's a really cool and classic model, especially if you love nostalgic old stuff. This one cannot be beaten in that regards. For the 2018 Yoda's Hut model, we have quite a bit more for play features. First of all, from the exterior, you can see we've got this little red snake here, but we've got some nice plants and stuff on the outside, a more accurate representation with just the one window there that R2 was peeking through. You'll see up on the top here, there's this sort of launcher thing. I think you're supposed to be able to put the figure up on top of there and like launch him off, but I don't imagine it works super well. Yeah, I don't really know what that's supposed to do, and every time I've done this, like this 1x2 jumper plate always rips off with his foot, so that's just a play feature that comes with it, I guess. It is what it is. It's got this little rope that I suppose is supposed to represent a vine, and he can kind of grab on it and swing there. Also noticeable from the outside is this smokestack, which is kind of just on this round jumper plate, so you can sort of like rotate it without breaking it off. So you can sort of have like the wind blowing the smoke in whatever direction. But you see how it's just this 1x1 here, so you can just kind of have it facing whatever direction you want the wind to be blowing. So that's kind of a unique detail, if you want to call it that. These end parts actually wrap around, so you can kind of expand it and have a bigger play area out in front, or you can have it in back too. But just more of a Jedi training area. Like you've got this box that you can sort of lift up and down on this little rod here, as if he's using the Force on it, because there's the transparent rod. this little handhold, so Luke can be like holding onto it and balancing upside down on one hand or whatever. And there's another part that I don't think it can really mess around with one-handed, I guess. Like this part just pops out and it can go inside this little Technic-hole on the front. So that's why the Technic-hole kind of just looks random and ugly when it's not up here. But this does stick right in there, and then you've got another like launcher or jumper plate, which I would imagine does not work super well either. I'm not even gonna bother. And from the backside, we have a much more condensed and smaller, less accessible area for Yoda's living space. The bed is probably the best because you can actually get on it and there's room on either side of it. It's kind of got this little bucket that just has a carrot or whatever. So yeah, whatever. It's got a table just like in the other one. It's got like a little frying pan on it. And more accurate in this model, he does have this little stove, like this little fire pit with a flame and stuff and the little bucket. So that's pretty cool. And it lines up right with the chimney too. So that's like where the smoke is coming from. So yeah, it looks nice. There's also a bottle tucked back in there. It looks really nice, but it's really just hard to get in there. It's like such a small space, whereas the other one I like how it opens up a lot better. So yeah, more features on this one, but there's that accessibility factor that gives a little edge to the other one too. And saving the coolest for last is the brand new one. Notice how on the outside we've got this little quote tile, do or do not, there is no try, which some people would say they're cringe. I think they're kind of nifty. I don't know. It's a brand new thing. They're just trying it out and seeing how it works, I suppose. But for the actual hut, I'll look at first, since that we were just looking at. The entryway is a little too small. Like, that's kind of messed up, actually. How, like, literally Yoda is taller than the entrance to his own hut. It's like the whole thing all over again with the Yeti or whatever, the Wampa in his Wampa cave from the UCS, quote-unquote, Battle on Hoth or whatever from a few years ago, where like the Wampa doesn't even fit in the Wampa cave. It's like Yoda doesn't even fit in Yoda's hut. So that's kind of a bummer to see. Like, it looks nice on display, and again, it's not really for the play feature, but how hard really would it have been to just make this like 1 or 2 bricks higher so he could actually fit in there? Like, really? But the hut itself looks pretty nice, how they blended in with the tree and stuff. Like, it does kind of look very blobby. There's a lot of like angles and arches and stuff, so I don't know, it does look cool, but it also looks kind of pixelated, for lack of a better word. Like, it just looks kind of rough around the edges. It does have this very little window that you can barely see up there. It does have this smoke vent, just like the other one, so that does line up if you turn it around. That does line up with the little stove in there and his pot that has some gruel in it. If you pull this out, I can't even get it out. But in his pot here, we do have a couple 1x1 studs in this weird olive green color. So that's supposed to be like the food or whatever that he's making and Luke eats. Ooh, good food! Good food! But also inside, if you can even see in there, you've got his lightsaber hilt hooked up on top there. And there's no blade in this set, so it's kind of weird to just have the hilt but no actual blade. Kind of funky. And then over there on the left side of it is his little bed, which he kind of can't even fit in because it's like 2-dot wide space. It's like 2x3 or 2x4 with the pillow included, and it's just right up against the wall, so like his arm does not even really have space to be in there, so he's like tilted at this angle if you put him in there. It's kind of a bummer. I really, like, how hard would it have been to make this just a couple studs wider so you could actually at least put him in there, especially with like all this brick built stuff for the trees. Like, I feel like there's a lot they could have just burrowed out and made it a couple studs wider for accessibility. Again, it is important to note this is not really a playset, so that's not what it's all about. It's about looking good from the outside and then just having these features sort of as an Easter egg instead of just a solid brick blob. So in that regards, I guess it's cool that they did anything at all since it's just a display set, but how easy would it have been to actually make it usable as a playset though too? And then you'd have that versatility factor for people who actually want it as a playset. So it's kind of just a bummer to see. But turning it back around to the other side, where this one really shines is obviously the scenery and everything around it. You've got this swamp thing, probably like 200 pieces in this set out of the 1,000, over 200 actually, are just in this swamp itself, like 1x1 studs. You see it's a mix of like studs, tiles, round studs, round tiles. You've got plenty of shrubbery in here and these little bushes and stuff. They did a really nice job spreading those out. A lot of different little pieces they're using in there. And little Easter egg, you've got this little frog hidden back here too. Just a classic green frog hiding away behind this bush, included in the set. You love to see it. The trees and stuff look really good, especially in person. Like, I don't think this video does it justice how great this looks and just how striking it looks in person with the tree and the dark greens and stuff and all the little plants. Just looks really nice. Sort of have a little setup of Luke's camp when he got there. Like, I think his flashlight and lantern and stuff and just tables. I suppose like his lunchbox would be included in there. And much like the 2018 version, it has this little handhold thing so he can be standing on his hands there and using the force and stuff. We also have a green snake to kind of go with the red snake in the previous set there. So again, it's nice to have just some little wildlife and stuff in here. Really good to see. And then of course you've got your X-Wing wing. I don't think it's exactly movie accurate how close the X-Wing is to the swamp, because I just remember when he got there, like he landed and he set up his camp right there. And then he was like, "Oh, take you to him, I will." And then like walked for 15 minutes or something through the woods and jumping over logs and crap. So I don't think the X-Wing was like right next to his hut. That was kind of a ways away, but for the sake of display purposes, it still looks nice and it's good to include it all. But yeah, I do not believe the swamp is like 3 feet away from Yoda's door exactly. So kind of inaccurate there. And that's also consistent with the mini model too. Like the swamp is like right there. But yeah, that's kind of interesting to note. I don't know if I even want to try to talk in terms of value comparatively for these three, because they're just, like I said before, just such different things to offer. Like for $50, you'd get the hut and an entire actual X-Wing fighter, like this one here on the ground. So that's obviously a better deal than paying $30 just for the hut. You're paying $50 for the hut and the X-Wing and for play features. And then of course, if you factor in inflation, I probably should have done the math before filming this, but I'd assume that it's a lot more, like it's probably more like 70 or 80 or something with inflation. And then of course, for all practical intents and purposes, if you're actually trying to buy this on Bricklink or eBay, it's way up in the hundreds just for a used one. New, I think it's probably more like 300. Again, I probably should have done the research there, but that's such a variable too. It doesn't matter if you're watching this in 6 months. It'll be way more expensive anyways, just because all this stuff is. So it doesn't really matter. Then for $30, you probably got the best play scale one, just for all the play features and stuff. And you can find these used. Like I just bought this for like 35 or something used and complete. You can probably find it like in the 40 range and stuff too. So it's probably your best deal, your best bet if you're trying to get like a play scale one with play features and stuff. And you've still got those 3 great figures. Very, very similar to the new ones. Like you're not getting... The new figures aren't different enough where it's worth it to buy the new figures over the old figures, because they're almost exactly the same thing. Or in Yoda's case, they are identical pretty much. So yeah, I think that's probably your best bet if you're looking for a play set. Whereas this one for display is hands down the best by far, by far, by far. It looks so great on display. I love this thing so much. It was such a great building experience too, even with the monotony of just all the studs and stuff. Like you kind of looked at before, it is pretty mixed up with like which ones are studs and which are tiles, and then you've got round stuff in there. So it is interesting. You actually do have to pay attention to what you're doing while you're building it, as long as you want it to be accurate. Like I guess it doesn't really matter. You could kind of just throw everything everywhere, except for the spots where like the plants go. Although you could put those wherever you want too. It's Lego, it's creative. You can do whatever you want with it. But it definitely is not lacking in the building experience perspective. The hut was really nice to build too, and the trees. So definitely the best building experience right there. Best display set for $80 versus $40 for the other hut. Like I think you're getting enough stuff where it's definitely worth it financially. But for the play set, again, if you're just looking for a Yoda's hut to play with, I would definitely spend $40 on a used play hut, then spend $80 on this one that you can't even get inside of. Like there's no rope or anything to swing on, none of the launching stuff or anything. And most importantly, you can barely even get in the hut. Yoda does not even fit in the door, for Christ's sake. He can't even lay in the bed. Like there's nothing you can do with the interior to make this worthwhile as a play set, whereas this one is just stock full of them. So that would definitely be my recommendation if you're just looking for a play set, but for display, 100% this. And I guess if you're just a nostalgia geek like me, that one is the best way to go, because it is way older than these ones. Like 14-year difference between this one, and then only a 4-year difference between these two. I wonder when the next one we're going to get will be. It would kind of be cool, like, after this one retires and after the X-Wing retires, if the next X-Wing release was with Yoda's hut again, and they kind of had, like, the same, like, sort of $50 style X-Wing that we just got, only with, like, greenery and stuff. Like, you see how, like, the Dagobah one has, like, some weeds and plants? It's kind of sort of an excuse for trying to call it, like, a swamp-busted one. So it'd kind of be nice to see like the new style X-Wing with like shrubbery and stuff on it to make it look dirtied up. That'd be just a really cool X-Wing, and then it'd make it easily enough removable so you could just take all the plants and stuff off and have a regular X-Wing. And then have like your same $30 size scale build, maybe a little bit bigger even, so it can be more accurate to what you see in the show and you can like do stuff inside and stuff. Then maybe not like the same detail build here where it's like big trees and stuff and all these studs for swamps, but maybe just like a little bit spread out, like little like 2x6 plate or like 4x8 or something like that with just like some shrubbery, maybe like a little thing with like Luke's camp. I think that would be great to see for like an $80 to $100 price range next time they do an X-Wing in like 3 to 5 years or something. So that pretty much wraps up this Yoda's Hut compilation comparison thingy. So yeah, be sure to let me know in the comments which one is your favorite. And again, like the video, subscribe, help build this channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.